It turns out, since Mattel did decide to take the gag gift of the build lily, which she originally was, and turn her into a fashion doll, there were a lot of people trying to replicate this, to make a fashion doll, a teenage model most of the time it seems, for children to play with. And there was a British example for it as well. I saw the first Sindy doll when I was over at my friend Rainbow Fine Arts house, and she still owns one out of her from her childhood. And when I went through eBay lately, I stumbled upon this girl, and I saw her, and I was like, she does look awful familiar. And I ordered her, or bet on her, because I knew Rainbow Fine Arts Sindy does have some damage as well, and she wanted to try to reroute her, but wasn't sure if she would be able to get the hair through the neck. It turns out this isn't a Sindy, this is a Camay made in Hong Kong, but she looks very, very similar to the original Sindy. And I'm not sure if the original Sindy has such a squishy head. But yeah, I want to now experiment with her a little bit. I definitely want to try to, first of all, reroute her. Then I think I want to repaint her, but to repaint her, I have a problem. The head is far too squishy for me to use the regular, which is MSC and watercolor pencils and soft pastels. I might have to go with acrylics, but I would like to shade her because I would like to see how this sculpt looks a little bit more, shaded, a little bit more detailed. And because of her being in, at least her head being in quite the rough shape, I'm not that bothered about changing her. What we will do is remove the makeup, remove the hair, try to get the hair plugs out here. And I have these two nice contraptions nicked from my brother. He uses them for crafting to hold things together instead of clamps or something. And I would like to see if, this already is too big, but this might work. So with this we could try to remove some of the plugs. But first I want to cut the hair shorter. And then when that is done, I want to reroute her. I have this hair laying around. I'm not sure where I have it from, because it's not in the regular Hank style that's bound together. It's loose. But it feels quite nice. It feels very similar to the nylon doll hair I normally use. So I think I want to use that because it's similar in color and it's quite long, and I want to give her long hair. So surprisingly, removing her hair was a piece of cake. Even getting out the hair was not that difficult with the contraption thing, tongs, whatever. So it was quite easy, which was surprising. I removed the rest of the makeup that was on there, left the color on the head because the hair I used was fairly similar. So with that I could start the rerouting process, which went quite well as well. When that was done, I did put in some glue, and I tried it with a pipette thing, but that didn't really work. The best way was to drizzle in a thin amount or thin stream of glue, and then I put her upside down onto a doll stand so the glue could drip out again. Let me show you. Doesn't look creepy at all, does it? Oh, another one. My dear Rainbow Fan Art, now is the moment where I have to tell you, this doll obviously will be yours. So you should stop the video now, turn around towards me, or come downstairs and get her, because she's with me. By the way, I am in Britain at the moment, when this video comes out, for possibly 24 hours. Anyway, my idea with this doll was, because I already knew I wanted to gift her to Rainbow Fine Arts afterwards, to turn her into a witchy fairy kind of thing, girly. Initially I planned to give her wings, but that failed miserably. We will talk about that later. But at this point I was making a petaled skirt with rhinestones glued on there, and had decided on a corset and a color palette of, mostly purples, blues, blacks, a little bit of a galaxy theme. Anyway, I knew I wanted to give her a hat, I knew I wanted to give her a corset, and I knew I had to make her boots, because there aren't any for this kind of doll in my collection. But while we are on the topic of this kind of doll, let's talk about Sindy for a moment. Let's talk a moment about the Sindy doll. I only knew her because of Hasbro, and I didn't know that the original Sindy was a British doll. The OG one, which came out in 1963, looked quite similar to the one I am working on. Later, I think in the 70s, they released a version where the joint between the neck and the head was slightly more up, where we know them from our Barbies nowadays. I might try to get my hands on one of those, because I kind of like her. Anyway, then in the 80s, I think, Hasbro took over and changed her completely. This new version brought a lawsuit with it from Mattel because she was too similar to Barbie. So they changed some stuff, but in the end, Hasbro did return the license back to Pedigree, and at one point in 2016, Tesco, the supermarket brand in Britain, released a Sindy doll that was supposed to be a relaunch or a remake of the OG, but she looks as similar as the Hasbro Sindy does. Even though I don't like the face sculpt that much of the original Sindy, I quite like the version from the 70s, but the OG not so much. At least Pedigree Toys did something that all the other companies that tried to make Barbie knockoff didn't. They tried something their own. They didn't try to copy Barbie. They made a fashion doll. She is a model as well, and she is a young model as well, but she at least looks like a young girl. Not like Barbie, who is supposed to be 16 and already looked quite old, which I assume had to do with the origin of Barbie as well. But when I look at Steffi Love or Petra from Germany or the Sindy from Hasbro, all of them look more like adult women, which is not an issue. I think it's totally fine for a fashion doll to look like that. But Pedigree Toys at least did something a bit different. So after going back and forth quite a lot, I decided the best way to make the face a little bit more stiff is to add resin in there, which will prevent any future repaint possibilities if you want to or if someone want to change her hair. In the end, repainting should work, but changing anything about her hair should be impossible now. But I thought, whilst I'm pouring resin into that poor girl's head, why not try to make wings out of wire and resin as well? As I said, I wanted her to have a fairy witchy vibe. The witch vibes I got, the fairy maybe not, because the wings failed miserably. I could have done a second attempt with UV resin, but yeah, no. So we are living without her having wings, but I just thought I'd leave it in to show you I tried and failed miserably. So, yeah. I wasn't able to get this straight enough, so the resin went everywhere. It is a disaster. It failed completely. So, yay! After the resin dried for over a week, I was finally able to brush out her hair and then boil wash it. And because I wanted her to have very bushy hair, I wanted her to have 2 pigtails and them being very curly, bushy, white, wild looking. I braided all of her hair whilst wet and gave it another boil wash. Then, yeah, when all of that was closed and packed away, I wrapped her up in some fabric so the hair was protected, to then finally start with the repaint of this girl. First, I did give her some white back into her eyes with acrylic paints. Then I gave her 3 layers of MSC. And then I could start with the main part, which is the soft pastels and the watercolor pencils. Before I talk more about her repaint, you can see her finished costume on the top left. I want you to look at the shoes. I am so proud of these frickin' things. They were so awful to make, but I think they turned out great. Anyway, my first idea for the repaint was to give her a fancy makeup with butterfly wings at the corners of the eye and a crescent moon on the forehead and stuff like that. And what did I do in the end? Yes, exactly, the most boring thing I can do, which is an eyeshadow from black to white and a normal lip. I don't know what it is with me, but I am just not very adventurous when it comes to makeup. In the end, she got her lips covered with a glossy varnish, where I did put a color shifting pigment in that I used for her nail polish as well. But yeah, all of my ideas for a fairy witch did end in nothing at all. I'm not as mad about it as I sound. I really like how she turned out in the end, but I do know that my repaints are slightly boring because it's most of the time always the same. One day I want to try to make a doll where I take a monster high with an already unnatural skin color and only use colors that are totally mismatched, like for example don't know, green for the blush and blue for the shading or something like that, to have it a bit more different, a bit more whimsical or whatever. But yeah, until I finally do that, you have to live with the default slightly smoky eye with normal lip. But hey, when that was done, I did first of all put the gloss on top, and I did glue some rhinestones on her onto her under eye area. So there is at least a little bit of fanciness going on. Yes, I know. I'm boring. But when I glued in her lashes, I really started to like her. I still think her face sculpt has a bit of chubby cheeks that I don't like that much. But we were getting more and more to a finished result where I thought, she does look cute. And the thing that totally got me was when I finally opened her hair. I decided to cut it just at the bottom so that none of the stuff that wasn't braided was still visible, and then I brushed it out and it gave exactly the effect I wanted. It looks poofy, it looks ridiculous, it looks, in my opinion, totally cute. I really, really enjoy how she looks with her big poofy hair and her two slightly braided pigtails with the ribbons in it. I'm quite happy with where we ended up with her. I have to say that. After her head and her body were finally rejoined, I then stuck her head onto her head with a needle, so it acts a little bit like a hat needle. And yeah, I think she turned out quite cute. To cover up the neck joint, I did add a choker, which I think looks very cute on her. I really like how she turned out, this 50-year-old girl. So, what do you think about her? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you for spending time with me today. And yeah, if you like to, we will see us in another video. Until then, bye.